Hello, boys and girls. I hope everybody is good. I hope everybody is safe. Um, I'm going to go ahead and go over the independent practice that I gave you guys for yesterday. There's 3 questions. Number 1, find the area of the trapezoid below. So if you recall from your previous notes, the formula for the area of a trapezoid, and of course, you will always have access to this formula. You don't have to memorize it unless you want to, but you always have it in your formula chart. So the formula for the area of a trapezoid is area equals base 1 plus base 2 times the height divided by 2. Now, in your formula chart, it tells you to multiply 1/2, and it doesn't have the divided by 2, but multiplying by 1/2 and dividing by 2 is the same thing. So I like to use this formula where it has the division of 2 at the end, just so it's a little bit easier for you guys to use, okay? So it doesn't matter which one you want, but to be base 1 or 2, doesn't really matter which one you want. In this case, I'm just going to use 10 as base 1 and 5 as base 2. But if you want to do it either or, doesn't matter. My height is 8.5, and then of course I'm going to divide that by 2. So the first step to do is your parentheses, 10 plus 5, which gives me 15. And I always rewrite my formula because it'll take me step by step, make sure that I don't forget anything. Okay, and I do it piece by piece all the time. So 10 plus 5 is of course 15. I have to multiply that by 8.5 and then divide by 2. Now of course you could work it out on the side. If you notice, I already worked it out over here. I worked it on the side. I multiplied. When I multiplied, I got 127.5. So you don't have to do everything in your head. I worked it out previously with the class, and I made sure I multiplied 15 times 85. Okay, when I worked it out, I got 1275, but because I have one place after the decimal, I went ahead and swooped one time, so it's 127.5. Okay. So area equals 127.5, and then I'm going to divide that by 2 because that's my last step. And I don't have space here, so I'm just going to write the final answer on the side. Make sure that you divide it. I already divided it right here. If you notice right here, I already divided it. Okay, and we ended up getting 63.75, and we're using units, so the answer would be in units squared, or squared units. Okay, that would be the answer for number 1. Number 2 is kind of like a 2-in-1, but they're both triangles. If you recall, the formula for the area of a triangle was base times height divided by 2. So here we would write our formula again. Area equals base times height divided by 2. Always write your formulas. It's very important. So if you notice, my base is 6 and my height is also 6. Now you should know what 6 times 6 is. And then we divide by 2. So my final answer would be 36 divided by 2. You can do it on the side. You don't have to do it in your head. But for those of you who already know, the answer would be 18. 18 units squared. Area equals base times height divided by 2. Where my base is 17.4. My height is 3.3. And then I divide by 2. Now, this one could be tricky. So I already worked it out here. Let me show you real quick. I did 17.4 times 3.3 right here. I multiplied. I did like the wooden pizza that you guys like to do. I multiplied 3 times 4, 3 times 7, 3 times 1. I put my placeholder and then I did again 3 times 4, 3 times 7, 3 times 1. When I added it up, I got 5742, but there's one decimal place here and one here, so that's 2. So I swoop 2 times, and when I multiply, I get 57.42. 57.42, and then I do my last step, which is to divide by 2. And then, of course, we already worked it on the side. You don't have to do it in your head. Work it out on the side, and your final answer should be 28.71 units squared. Okay. Number 3. Number 3 is a little bit more challenging because they gave you certain pieces of information and they left out some certain pieces of information. Let's read number 3. It says the area of a parallelogram is 180 square units. The base of the parallelogram is 24 units. What is the height of the parallelogram? So what's different here is that we're missing a height. We're missing a number inside the formula, okay? And this takes you back to the solving equations lesson. You always have to remember your previous lessons because they always find ways to tie your previous lessons into new lessons, okay? So we know the formula for the area of a parallelogram is just base times height. Now they tell you the area is 180, so instead of the A, I'm going to put the 180 because I already know the area is 180. I know that the base, because the top and the bottom are the same, is 24, but I don't know the height. And I didn't put anything in between the 24 and the H because, as I've taught you before, when a number and a letter are next to each other without anything in between, it just means that they're multiplying. So this is saying 24 times what number will give me 180. So you think, what? If you had multiple choice answers, you could just plug in your answer choices, multiply 24 by every answer choice, and see which one gave you the 180. So, but because we don't have that, you have to work backwards. So the opposite of multiplication is division. So what we have to do is we would have to divide both sides by 24 because what you do to one side, you must do to the other. That's the golden rule in math. Kind of like the golden rule in life is treat others the way you want to be treated. The golden rule in math is what you do to one side, you do to the other. So that 24 divided by 24 is 1, which is why H stays by itself. And then on the side, you work out that. Now, some of you are probably thinking, oh my gosh, those are such big numbers. You can always simplify. I could probably simplify these by maybe, let's just take it easy and simplify by 2. This would become 90 over 12. Those look like easier numbers to divide. But even if you want to even go lower, you could simplify by 2 again. And it becomes 45. Those are a lot easier to divide. So you do 45 divided by 6. 6 can't go into 4, but 6 can go into 45 7 times. With a remainder of 3. Add a decimal and a 0. Bring your decimal up. Bring your 0 down. And 6 goes into 35 times. So my height is really 7.5 units. And that is our work for our independent practice. Okay? Now, this, if you notice on your notes, there's still some extra stuff afterwards. This is not for a grade. These are just extra notes. If you guys want to take a look at it, basically it's just, they're just like number 3. But these just say write the equation that can be used to find the length. So if you notice, it's missing the length of the longer base. They're just missing numbers inside the units, like this one's missing the base, and this one's missing the height. So they just want you to write the equations. They don't really want you to work it out like we did on number 3. So like if they asked you to write the equation here, remember the formula was base 1 plus base 2 times the height divided by 2. See, they're telling you that the area is already 60 square units. So the area is already 60. I don't have that base, but I do have this one. The height is 8, and then you divide by 2. You don't have to work it out. They just want to know. They just want you to write the equation that could be used to find it. So from here, we would have to work backward. Okay. On this one too, they want just the equation. They're telling you that the area is already 12.5. If you remember, the formula is base times height divided by 2. So since the area is 12.5, that goes there. I don't know the base, but I do know the height. And you could just write like this. I know that this is the base and this is the height, but multiplication is commutative. So you still have to multiply both numbers. And that could be the equation. Okay. For number 3, area equals base times height. The area is already 180 units. The base is 30 because the top and the bottom are the same size. And then I don't know my height. And that's it. That's the equation. Okay. So these have missing numbers, but they didn't want you to work it out. They just wanted to see the formula. So you got to just show where the missing number is, in this case right here. Okay. This one here wants you to find the area. Now, if you notice, it says find the area of the figure below using areas of right triangles and or rectangles. So if you look at the big picture, this kind of looks like a little house, right? But on your 6th grade formula chart, it's not going to say this is the formula for the area of a house. So you have to see it in different ways. So when we're going over this work with your classmates this morning, they were like, oh, miss, I see a rectangle and I see 2 triangles. Okay. But to make it easier on yourself, you could use just one rectangle and one big triangle. Let me highlight the big triangle for you. Just so that way you only have to find the area of 2 shapes instead of the area of 3. Okay? Now, remember, on a rectangle, the base, the opposite sides are equal to each other. So if the base of the rectangle is 38 units, then this top part is also 38 units. And you can tell because they had split it up into 2 sections, so you could use 2 different triangles. But I want to make it easier for you. If you add 25 and 13, it still gives you 38, which was the side to begin with. So since they want the total area of this figure, we're going to find the area for the big rectangle. the big triangle, and then we would add it together because they want the whole thing. Okay, so we'd find the area of the rectangle, the triangle, and then we would add it together. The formula for the area of a rectangle is base times height. So we would multiply 38 times 6, which on the side, if you work it out, you don't have to do it in your head, but because we worked it out in class already, I'm going to tell you that when you multiply 38 times 6, you get 228 units squared. Okay? Area equals base times height divided by 2. So you look at this triangle. The base is 38 units. Remember, 38 units. The height would be 8 units. So this base is 38. The height, remember, it's from the highest point straight down. And it's labeled 8 units. And then we divide by 2. When you multiply 38 by 8, you should get, again, do it on the side, 304. And when you divide by 2, it should give you 152 units squared. Okay. So then after that, now that I found the area of the rectangle and the triangle, we would add it together. That would be 10. That would be 8, and that would be 3 units squared. That would be the total area. Sorry about that. 228 plus 152 is 380. That's the total area. I apologize. Okay. All right. So finally we have these two here. Okay, and these actually want us to find the area. Okay. So, and they have missing numbers inside of them. So this one says the area is already 176. They tried to trick us here, so we could use 2 different triangles. We don't have to do that. We could use one big triangle and we could just combine these together. So you can have a base of 44 units. So you could just use one formula. Area equals base times height divided by 2. The area is already 176. The base is 44. I don't know what my height is, but I know I have to divide by 2. So this one's kind of tricky. You got to work backwards. So the last thing you would do in a formula would be to divide by 2. But because we have a missing number, we have to undo this here. You got to work backwards. So the opposite of dividing by 2 is 2. Multiply by 2. And what we do on one side, we have to do to the other. These become a 1. Leaving you with, see, now we're one step closer to finding out that number. On the side, multiply 2 times 176. It gives you 352. And then these two are multiplying. The opposite of multiplication is division. And what I do to one side, I do to the other. That becomes a 1. You work this out on the side, and you should get an answer of 8. So the height would be 8. And then last but not least, again, the formula is area equals base times height divided by 2. This one's a little bit trickier because look what they gave you for the bases. 2x and 1x. Well, 2x plus 1x gives you 3x. So the base is 3x. So the base is 3x times 8 divided by 2. Now you can actually work this out, believe it or not. 3 times 8 is 24. You just it's kind of like distributive property. You can multiply it. So it'll actually give you 24x. And then of course divided by 2. So when you work backwards, the opposite of dividing by 2 is to multiply by 2. What you do to one side, you do to the other. That cancels out, leaving you with, what doesn't cancel out, it becomes a 1. But 1 times anything is a number itself. Or 1 divided by, or a number divided by 1 is that number itself. So that becomes 240. Now these two numbers are multiplying. The opposite of multiplication is division. And what you do to one side, you do to the other. 24 divided by 24 is 1. That's why x stays by itself. And on the side, 240 divided by 24 goes in once. Bring up your 0. Because when you take off 24, that's 0. But you don't use it, so you bring it up. 10. The answer would be 10. Now, if you ever want to double check your work, plug this number in here. 24 times 10 is 240. And 240 divided by 2 is 120. So you're good. Okay. And that's how you do it. Now, these last problems that I did, they are not for grade. They are just for extra notes practice. Now, your assignment for tomorrow, if you notice, those of you who are in Google Classroom, I gave you the answers. The reason why I gave you the answers is because I want you to be using the formulas. I want to know, or I want to see that you guys can use the formulas the way I've showed you. Okay? So I didn't give you the answers just so you could write the answers. I give the answers so you could work out the formula properly and then check your work against the answers, okay? Miss you guys so much. Y'all stay safe.